Seems
Yeah.
like they'll virtue signaling to make themselves feel good rather than it being actually something that they believed in.
I that's not offensive to me at all. I think there are some people who look for offense. I had the weirdest thing happen. We've got this show, An Evening Without Kate Bush, and we sing Babushka in Russian. And when Russia invaded Ukraine, I just messaged the creative team. I said, look, we're not doing anything offensive in this show, but I just want, just for my own, you know, barometer, I just want to check in. Does anyone think there's anything that could be perceived as being offensive? Because at that point, everything Russian was being cancelled. The Russian opera was cancelled. The Russian opera was cancelled. And ironically, I spoke to the team. I think most of the people in it were Ukrainian.
Oh,
But but we talked about it. And so what I did was I just slightly repositioned the character I was playing so that they were even more the butt of their own joke. Anyway, I had Ukrainian people come to the show, Russian people come to the show saying, we love it, we love it. We just love that you're singing in Russian. It's so joyful, it's so beautiful. And I was coming out of the Soho Theatre. I do a meet and greet after the show. And this guy, he was right up in my face, like an inch from my face, and he shouted at me and he said, you're disgusting. You're a horrific person. How could you do this? It's just awful. And I was in that post show kind of, I'm very open, I'm very emotionally open because I'm about to meet people and chat to them. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, how could you sing? How could you sing that in Russian? And I was like, well, I'm sorry that you feel upset by this. There's nothing offensive to Russian people. There's nothing offensive to Ukrainian people. He had his thing and he kept on and on and on. And, when you've got tears, they're kind of like building up to your eyelids and you're thinking, I'm going to just lose it here. And I said, are you Ukrainian or are you Russian? He said, no, but I've got Ukrainian house guests and they'd be upset if they saw this show.
ah,
And I said, I would really love to invite your Ukrainian house guests to come and see the show. But what I realized was it wasn't about me. It wasn't about the show. He was obviously carrying something around in him that felt very heavy in his heart about his inability to do something to help. He was being offended on someone else's behalf. But it was he had his reaction and he's entitled to that. Looking back, I think I would have protected myself more. It was deeply upsetting. For the next month of doing the shows, I was always frightened that someone was going to take offense. No one else ever has. We're at nearly 300 performances. No one's ever had an issue with it, but he did. And I think he had an agenda before he even walked in that room that there was
ah.
nothing I could have done anything about.
The thing about it is, you should ask. It's like there's something wrong with that in a way because it's like if the other people of the race that it's implied on aren't offended by it and they understand it's their experience, this and that, they're okay with it. How can you pretend to know what they should be offended about? Or like, if they're okay with it, you went and checked and saw what you're doing. You were being cautious of seeing whether it was offensive.
Yeah.
You did the precautions. How can he say it's offensive? And he's not, is he that qualified to fully understand whether something is offensive for that culture? Or-
Well, he isn't. And I think we're in an interesting time. Like someone says, oh, I'm offended. And part of me wants to go, so what? You're entitled to your offense. But that doesn't mean that everything has to change to meet your wishes. We're in such a delicate place at the moment. People go, I'm offended. And you think, okay, thanks for telling me. It's not necessarily my responsibility. It's this thing with impact. I used to be a diversity and inclusion trainer when I was younger, one of my many, many jobs to earn money. And, there's such an important thing about impact and intent. So, if someone is impacted by something that you did or said, and it wasn't your intention, have that conversation. But he didn't even have the conversation. Like your guy in the cafe, he was straight up in my grill, very aggressive, very threatening. In the end, he was like, I'm going to contact the theatre. I'm going to get this show removed. Of course, nothing happened. What I'd like to think is that he went home and he told his Ukrainian house guests, and they probably said, David, what are you doing? Stop harassing performers after the show.
yes.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. But I guess what I'm saying is like your situation, you never know where that person's coming from, what's happened to them. Maybe their cat's just died. Maybe they're really struggling in their relationship. But I think as performers, we're very open people, we're very available, and we're constantly people watching. We're constantly trying to work out what makes people tick. And it's one of my bugbears if I can't work out what makes someone tick. I really want to know. I'm so
Hmm.
fascinated. I almost wanted him to get in touch so I could have a conversation with him about it when I was,
Nah.
less emotional, but he